Why are strong foundations a source of increased profit? After a short introduction, you will in this section get a selection of conclusions from researchers about what drives people towards greater performance. This includes the function of the heart and brain and how it influences performance when we're either experiencing ourselves as recognized or frustrated. Focuses on investment versus benefit, how you personally need to invest, and the influence your personal investment has on the company's business results. You will discover that the section has very little focus on the direct economic investment of your company, and that focuses on your way of communicating instead. More and more researchers are asking the big question about what people can do to obtain more good and productive days, what stands in the way, and which results in poor and less productive days. In spite of human diversity, conclusions point at two main factors for good days: that there is a clear purpose for what the person is working with, and that the person is able to see that the work is progressing. That the employee has a good inner work-life balance. A clear purpose has to do with the company's strategy, vision, and mission, and whether the employee can relate to and feel ownership of the values. Factors that make the employee experience that he or she is able to move forward are, for instance, finding a solution to a problem, achieving a goal, or completing a task. Opposite factors of bad days are, for instance, that work is not progressing and/or that the employee cannot see that the work contributes to anything or that it makes a difference. The fact that the employees are experiencing a good inner work-life balance has something to do with whether they feel that they are special, including implicitly that they are being treated properly and decently. What that means is only known by the individual, and the manager cannot guess what it is. Instead, the manager needs to be curious and present to get even closer to understanding what each individual experiences as a good inner work-life balance. Enter the leadership path, lead and manage strategies to know more about clear purpose and the formal structures and systems that govern strategies and progress. Michael Beer and Nitin Noraya describe two theories, Theory E and Theory O, in the book Breaking the Code of Change. The two theories have a dramatically different approach to organizational change, and both theories are, according to the two writers, observations, studies, and experience implemented in businesses throughout the world. The two theories are based on widely differing perceptions of the purpose and meaning of change. Some leaders make a plain decision between the two, and some companies have both strategies and most often with differing importance. The objective of Theory E is to create economic value, often expressed as shareholder value. Focuses on formal structures and systems and operated from the top with strong support from consultants and financial incentives. Changes are scheduled and programmed. The objective of Theory O is to develop the organization's human competence, to implement strategy and simultaneously to learn from actions taken in relation to how efficient implementation of change is. The focus is on the development of a culture with a high degree of ownership and involvement, and consultants and incentives are seen as less catalyst for change. Change is less scheduled and programmed. Beer and Noraya stress that both theories have their advantages and disadvantages, which leads to respectively earnings and cost. When operating the two theories together in an intelligent way within the organization, it is possible to maximize earnings and minimize costs. When operating the two theories together in an unintelligent way, the authors argue that earnings are minimized and the cost is maximized. In that case, it is better to choose one of the two theories in its pure form. Theory E creates rapid improvements in economic value, but it is harder to compete with in the longer term because there are no simultaneously built organizational competences and ownership. Theory O builds lasting advantages by development of organizational competences and ownership, but it has more difficulties in proving the ability of rapid change. This leadership path is focused on Theory O, developing people. Many managers find Theory E easier to handle since formal structures and systems are relatively unique. With Theory O, there are many more facets because understanding and working with social elements requires the understanding of human nature and people's driving force. It is for many far more demanding. Appreciation, recognition, praise, celebration, and feedback are all elements of Theory O, which can strengthen the inner work-life balance. At the same time, it is important to recognize that structures and systems implemented intelligently strengthens direction and drive. Teresa M. Amabil and Stephen J. Kramer have done research into the inner working lives of employees and have written in Harvard Business Review on inner work-life understanding the subtext of business performance. They lean on previous neurological research, which has shown that emotions and experiences are intertwined. The parts of the brain that are associated with rational thinking and decision-making are in direct contact with the parts that are associated with emotions. They interact in complex ways, and the brain cannot be understood through an understanding of single components. Amabil and Kramer also look at inner work life in this way. During 3 years, they received diaries from employees. The diaries contain 12,000 reports concerning inner work life, and the reports conclude the following. The performance of any employee is under the influence of the constant interplay between perceptions, emotions, and motivation, triggered by experiences of a working day, including the actions of the manager. However, the inner working lives of the employees are invisible to the manager. They have noted that the managers do not see what really gives motivation to the employee, as it is hidden, often even to the person him or herself. Workday events govern whether the employee becomes happy or angry. Joy leads to a higher degree of motivation, creativity, and performance, whereas anger does the opposite. Already at an early stage, Amabil and Kramer were rewarded with proof of the intensity of the inner working lives of humans and the direct relation to their performance. At the same time, they concluded that interaction with the manager is an important factor, of which, however, the manager does not realize the strength and complexity of. Amabil and Kramer do not give advice to the manager, but just draw attention to the fact that the manager has a responsibility to find out when interaction results in joy and motivation that leads to better performance, and when the interaction results in anger and thus contributes to a poorer performance. The illustration shows that there are obvious possibilities for the manager to influence work performance through emotions and in a positive way create joy, pride, warmth, and love. It is pointed out that the manager cannot see what is important to the employee, and that the employee, him or herself, barely knows it either. The employee feels a joy, pride, warmth, and love, and the manager cannot deduce that, and nor can it be found in textbooks. We are not all alike, and we respond with different force to different events. Every individual has his or her own components that interact differently. Amabil and Kramer continue to describe that when something happens at the workplace, it immediately triggers processes about experiences, emotions, and motivation. The brain goes into emotion mode and tries to find out why the event happened and what it means. Depending on the conclusion of the brain, on its experience and emotional processes, motivation can change, and that has a direct influence on work performance. Humans perform better when their workday is filled with positive thoughts, a strong passion for the work, and a more positive perception of their work, their team, their managers, and their organization. The effect cannot be explained by differences in personal profiles, but solely by the fact that the workday of any employee is under the influence of their inner work life. Amabil and Kramer point to 4 elements that create high-performing teams: creativity, productivity, ownership, and sociality with colleagues. The relations to emotions are valid in all 4 elements. For example, positive feelings mean higher creativity, and negative feelings produce lower creativity. Researchers have measured the long-term durability and reached the conclusion that it lasts until after the next day, and in some cases until several days later. Humans are more creative when they are primarily motivated by interest, joy, satisfaction, and the challenge of work itself, and not by external pressure or reward. Creativity is also greatest when the employee experiences that the managers are cooperative, open to new ideas, focus on innovative vision, and are willing to reward creative ideas. Creativity is lowest when the employee experiences internal political quarrels, internal competition, that the organization is resistant to new ideas or afraid to take risk. In the same way, the connection to emotions is repeated in relation to the other 3 elements that create effective teams, meaning productivity, ownership, and sociality with colleagues. Performance is better when the employee is in high spirits, and worse when the employee is in a bad mood. Inner work life influences performance and how creatively humans think, how productive they are, how much they show ownership for their work, and how good colleagues they are. Many of the events that form the inner work life are directly or indirectly caused by managers. Events that determine if a human being is treated properly often relate to the progress of his or her work. Lack of recognition for good performances or criticism of minor details can cause anger or depression, where recognition for a well-done task is a strong mean of producing good days. However, recognition for a completed task that the employee would not him or herself call high performance may cause cynicism or at best no reaction at all. Amabile and Kramer point to several ways in which the manager can act upon to produce more good days. For instance, help directly, ensure necessary resources and time, react on successes and mistakes in a learning perspective, and most importantly of all, to set clear goals. Where are we heading? Why is it important? And where do I make a difference? If clear goals can be established through ideas from both manager and employee, and if they are built on what motivates the employee in his daily life, then the goals are particularly strong. The inner work lives of employees are constantly active, and the manager cannot avoid that it happens. The manager has an infinite number of possibilities for influencing the inner work life. Clearing the way to enable employees to perform and recognition are two of the most important ones. The interplay between manager and employee can become a positive spiral for the benefit of the organization. Glenn Ryan, Rollin McGrady, and Mike Atkinson have carried out further research into the synchronization of heartbeat and brain activity, which is an important factor for good health. They conclude that even if synchronization can happen spontaneously through positive emotional experiences or sleep, long-term durability is rare. Focusing actively on a state of sincere recognition can give longer periods of psychological coherence between the heart and brain. By using recognition as a catalyst, this opens the possibility that the synchronization of the heart and brain can become a natural part of daily life. In this way, it will typically be easier to preserve the positive feelings and the psychological coherence for longer periods, also in challenging situations. Individuals can learn to create coherence with increased reliability and in this way reduce stress, anxiety, and depression, while at the same time increase health, emotional stability, performance, and life quality. With practice, this new coherence between recognition, brain activity, and heartbeat can be known to the brain and the nervous system and thus be established as a new stable baseline or norm. That in turn can lead to a long-term improvement of physical and emotional health. Related experiments also show that through recognition a student can lower his fear of exams, and athletes will more easily obtain the state of peak performance and make top performances. Ryan, McGrady, and Atkinson have examined what the effects of releasing anger has on humans, as opposed to the effect self-recognition has. They tested emotional reaction in a number of subjects, releasing anger and frustration through video clips and compassion and care through self-recognition. The effect on the heartbeat was measured, and the conclusions was that to a high degree, anger influences the heartbeat negatively. The heartbeat also influences immune defenses, so the person has a greater risk of developing exhaustion and stress. The results show that the after effect of anger can stay as long as 5 hours in humans before we're back to status quo. On the other hand, the positive effects last for more than 6 hours. The time frame for the experiments was 6 hours, and within this time the positive effect had not disappeared. For how long the effect of recognition really lasts was not examined in these experiments. The group that recognized themselves had a dramatic fall in experienced tension, anxiety, anger, exhaustion, and confusion, and at the same time had increased energy and a feeling of love, recognition, relaxation, and calmness. The opposite was the case in the group with anger and frustration, and the emotions were disappointment, annoyance, aggression, provocation, bitterness, resentment, and violation. The physical reaction on anger and frustration was a faster heartbeat, headache, dry mouth, and muscular pains. The physical reaction lasted from 3 to 6 hours. Marcus Buckingham and Kurt Kaufman have collected 25 years of research in the book First Break All the Rules: What the World's Greatest Managers Do Differently. They base their book on Gallup's research into what good leaders of the world do differently. The research is divided in two, in which the first part consists of interviews with more than 1 million employees concerning the needs that must be covered in order for employees to be most productive. The most significant conclusion was, talented employees need very talented managers. How long an employee stays at his or her workplace and how productive he or she is depends on the relation to their immediate manager. This finding led to the second part of the research. How do the best managers in the world find, focus, and keep the most talented employees? Based on performance measurements, for instance sales results, profit, customer satisfaction, employee turnover, and 360-degree analysis, the best managers were separated from the average managers. During the past 25 years, Gallup has conducted interviews with more than 80,000 managers on all organizational levels. Focus has been on managers that were best at transforming talent to performance. In spite of the fact that knowledge in relation to these managers varied, the investigation looked for what was common for the best managers. Common for the best managers is that none of them believe in the traditional perception of management, that all employees have an inexhaustible potential, that the best way to help employees is to fix weaknesses, that the manager should treat others as he or she would like to be treated him or herself, that all must be treated equally in order that nobody is favored. The best managers do not choose the easy way that traditional understanding of management prescribes, and at the same time there is no clear prescription. It requires discipline, focus, confidence, and perhaps most importantly, a willingness to individualize. The character traits that the most proficient managers share are a deeply felt wish to help all employees to become more of what they really are, even better versions, and with the unique strengths they possess. A deeply felt wish to treat every human individually. A wish to become a close friend of his or her employees. An acceptance that he or she cannot change other people and that all he or she can do is to facilitate. A trusting nature. The best managers defy conventional wisdom about management. Reflections on findings from researchers. What is going on in the inner working life of an employee is not something the manager can figure out on his own. If a manager wants to know more to be able to act better as a manager, he must ask, listen, and reflect. For instance, the manager can ask what makes the employee feel joy and pride, and that requires the manager's curiosity. Perhaps the employee's response is not what makes the manager feel joy and pride. It does not matter as long as the employee feels joy and pride, which means for him or her better performance and thus a better result. In addition to the events that concern progress in the work, the relational events also cause good or bad days. Here are a few examples of events that may affect employees' inner work-life balance and cause bad and unproductive days. None of the others empty the dishwasher. It is always me who does it, and it makes me angry and annoyed. I certainly do not agree to the new things that we must do, which were described in the email we just received, and I'm frustrated that I haven't been asked. I do not understand why my manager is bullying my colleague, and it makes me worried and sad. Jim always has private phone calls, and it annoys me that the manager does not do anything about it. Everybody talks behind my back, and I have no desire to go to lunch with anyone, and I feel lonely. I have not been invited to join the assignment regarding development of the new working methods, and I'm frustrated that they do not want to listen to the ideas I have. I think it is unfortunate that my colleague is not praised more, because I think he is doing a good job, and I'm sorry to see that he is sad. I get to hear only the negative things about myself, and I dare not do anything anymore. The time in which the employee is at work or is thinking about work has increased compared to previous generations, and it means that the inner work-life balance is becoming more and more important. Unfortunately, it is a reality which managers rarely notice. A manager's inability to read and understand the individual's inner work life makes it difficult for the manager to know what interactions that affect and does not affect the individual. The manager must be present, experience, and ask questions to discover the individual's inner work life, and it takes time in the busy daily life of a manager. It is time to prioritize what makes the larger difference. In a busy daily life, it is also easy to forget to acknowledge. The more successful the manager is in acknowledging employees, and the more employees are able to recognize themselves, the more it supports a positive and good basis for an inner working life. This means that it takes much more in order to get the individual off course by the events that happens during the day. This provides solid ground for continuous good achievement. In addition, it supports the individual to live a healthier life. Ryan Atkinson and McGrady's research have focused on self-recognition and have not measured the effects of others' recognition towards us. Recognition from others can be at least equally effective. At the same time, the researchers measured anger and frustration caused by the impact from video clips and had not measured on the effect of anger triggered in the workplace. It is easy to imagine that the effect can last longer when somebody has the possibility to refresh their anger and frustration every morning at work, where he or she meets the person who initially triggered the anger. There's not much space in the short-term working memory, and if the employee fills it with negative perceptions of a frustrating meeting with his or her manager, then the question is how long time the employee will be occupied with negative thoughts. It may be that the manager is watching the employee working and perceives that the employee is typing on the computer. The manager might not see how many times the text will be rewritten because the employee is filled up with frustration and therefore cannot focus on his or her task. How long will it last, and what does it cost in lost productivity? Regardless of how high up in the organization a person belongs, he or she still needs recognition and appreciation. It is a well-known fact that in many organizations, the higher up in the hierarchy you belong, the lesser appreciation you get. Therefore, it is an even greater need for these people to be able to recognize and appreciate themselves. The reason for lack of appreciation is usually described with statements such as, "When you get so much in salary, then we have to expect that you are self-driven and moreover can withstand great pressure, including sharp criticism." Researcher and psychologist Katzenbach has identified two important parameters for creating an efficient team that delivers results: productivity and positivity. Productivity concerns creating the foundation for good business in the market, set clear goals, structured follow-up, and communicate that it is worthwhile. Positivity is about creating energy in the team in order that the team exploits its potential and focuses on the task with passion and joy, without letting him or herself be disturbed by irrational thoughts. The irrational thoughts often come from frustrations, from shattered dreams, and from missing the right to be heard and taken seriously. Working with the positivity axis releases emotions such as, "I'm competent, I'm doing a good job, I'm proud, I like my workplace, my colleagues and my manager, I look forward to getting up in the morning, I personally contribute to the success of my workplace, I am fast, I am smart." Recognition and appreciation are important catalysts on the positivity axis, if the recognition adds personal value. The results of the research show clearly that recognition and appreciation, and thereby also celebrating feedback and praise, are worth dealing with if the manager wants to work with efficient teams that produce results.